We're going to look at the ultimate wine of Spain, Tempranillo. It's the number 8 red wine grape, one of the top 5 noble grapes in the world, and most of us have never heard of it. There are over 10,000 grape varietals or types of wine grapes in the world, and the most important ones are called noble grapes. There are only 17 of them. 8 are white and 9 of them are red. Do you understand how amazing that is? 17 out of over 10,000 grape varietals. That's less than 0.2% of all the grapes in the world are noble grapes. My hope is you'll go with me on this quest to try and taste these 17 noble grapes. If you do, I'll certify you as an Asti wined noble grape aficionado. Now, Tempranillo, the grape and the wine that we're looking at in this particular video, is a noble grape. Actually, Tempranillo, a red grape, is the number 3 noble grape. It's the number 8 most prevalent red grape in the world, and most people have never heard of it. In this video, we're going to learn 5 things about Tempranillo. 1, some general trivia. 2, where it's from. 3, the basics of the grape varietal. 4, its taste profile. And 5, some suggested food pairings. For those of you who are not familiar with Tempranillo, I hope you'll expand your horizon and indulge yourself in this hidden treat. I really think you're going to love it. Also, keep in mind, if at any time you like what you hear, click like, subscribe, and hit the little bell so you'll be notified when there's a new post. And also, make sure you share this with your friends. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. Number 1, some general trivia. The name Tempranillo comes from the Spanish word temprano, meaning early. Tempranillo means little early one. This is fitting because it ripens earlier than the other grape natives to Spain. It's a lot like me. It has thick skin, and interestingly enough, it's sensitive. It needs protection from the wind and other elements, and we love the sun. Tempranillo is a very old varietal. While the earliest official mention of the varietal is from 1807, it's believed it was introduced to Spain, Portugal, and Italy by the Phoenicians over 3,000 years ago. It's one of the most planted varietals in the world and is considered one of the 9 red noble grapes. That's a big deal. Tempranillo is one of the top varietals blended into port wine from Portugal. It has thick, dark skins, which gives its wine a deep color without too much alcohol, and it blends well with a lot of different grapes, including Garnacha, Manzuelo, and Graziano. When it comes from Spain, typically you'll find a Tempranillo has the name Rioja on the bottle instead of Tempranillo. You think that's a little confusing. From some countries, it's also known as Tinta Roriz, Aganese, and Tinto Fino. We'll get into that more later in this video. But I assure you, once you start drinking Tempranillo, all these seemingly confusing bits of trivia will start to click. Yes, I realize there's a learning curve, but it's worth it because this is truly a wine you could really fall in love with. When it comes to the names on Tempranillo bottles, one of the things you really need to look out for is these wines are categorized by their aging. Let me show you. It used to say on the bottle, Vino Joven, translated young wine. Now it just says Rioja. This young wine, Rioja, has a little or no aging. You'll find these are more affordable, everyday wines. They're clean and flavorful and good for really a new wine drinker. This is a Crianza. Crianza is released after 2 years of aging with a minimum of 1 year in the bottle and 1 year in oak barrels. Now, like Rioja and Crianza, all the other categories have their category names on the bottle. You have the Reserva. It's released after 3 years of aging with a minimum of 1 year in oak barrels. And the Grand Reserva, it's released after 5 to 7 years of aging with a minimum of 2 years in oak barrels. The requirements for bottling and aging are much more stringent than the requirements in the US. Now, as you might guess, the longer it's in the barrel, the richer and more layered it is, and the more expensive it's going to be. The Reserva and Gran Reserva are typically from Rioja, the region, Toro, and Ribera del Duero. They are age-worthy. You can buy them and lay them down for several years, especially the Gran Reserva. It can lay down for upwards of 30 years. Tempranillo stands up extremely well by itself, but because of its acidity, it is sometimes softened by blending it with the Grenache grape, that is Grenache in Spain, the Carrigan grape, which is called Manzuelo in Spain, and the Graziano, Merlot, and Cabernet Sauvignon. These grapes round out the Tempranillo. Number 2, where it grows. When it comes to Tempranillo's global production, you can see that Spain is the dominant player. Spain has 88% of the global production. Portugal is 6%. Argentina is at 2%. Then comes France, Australia, and the US, and everybody else, each at 1%. Tempranillo is the number 1 and obviously the dominant Spanish grape varietal. It is the best red varietal of Rioja, Spain, and accounts for about 40% of the planted acreage in Rioja and Rioja Alvareza. The most elegant expression of Tempranillo, or Rioja, absolutely loves high elevation and clay-dominated soils like the high altitudes of Rioja Alta and Rioja Alvareza. So, if you're looking to collect and lay down your Tempranillo, those areas, along with Toro and the Ribera del Duero regions, are the place to explore for more. Plus, you'll want the Reserva and Gran Reserva from those areas. Because of its growing popularity, you're seeing Tempranillo being produced in more places. Now, this is a little confusing, but well worth the effort. In Portugal, Tempranillo is called Tinta Roriz and Agarniz. We'll touch on the Portuguese taste profile along with the Spanish profile in just a minute. Argentina Tempranillo goes by, or is called, Tempranillo. And compared to the Argentinian Malbec, it's relatively hard to find. Typically it offers a great value, and these will have flavors of smoke, black cherry, cinnamon, cedar, and vanilla. Tempranillo shows really good potential in southern Oregon. The climate there seems surprisingly similar to Rioja Alto, producing wines with elegant flavors of cherry, leather, and dill. Again, remember, many Tempranillos coming out of Spain are called Riojas. How are you doing there? I'm curious, would you do me a favor? I'm doing a simple survey. Have you ever had or drunk a Tempranillo or a Rioja? If you have, please write yes. If not, please write no in the comments below. Now, the next 3 points we'll be covering will be the basics of the grape varietal, the taste profile, and food pairings. We're going to go through those pretty quickly. Number 3, the basics of the grape varietal. If you've never had a Tempranillo, you'll find it will be either a medium to full-bodied red wine with red fruit characteristics. The structure in your mouth will be somewhere between a Sangiovese or Chianti and a Cabernet Sauvignon. It's a little bit bolder than a Chianti, but softer than a Cabernet. It will have medium to medium plus tannins and medium to medium minus acidity. It's going to be something like a velvety Merlot. Number 4, the taste profile. Depending on where the wine comes from, even in the different regions of Spain, the primary flavor characteristics you taste will be fruits such as dried or soured cherries, a black plum, boysenberry, strawberries, roasted tomatoes, and dried figs. I think you'll also find other flavors like cedar, leather, tobacco, and black pepper. Maybe a little bit of dill and pastrami, some chard, and maybe a little bit of clove. Also, each of the different aging categories of Rioja have different levels of sophistication and evolving taste profiles. As you can see, the Rioja is different than the Crianza. The Crianza is different than the Reserva, and the Reserva is different than the Gran Reserva. They each have a unique place in making Tempranillo the #3 noble grape wine in the world. Vino Joven, now known as Rioja, it's rarely blended with other grapes, and depending on where it's from, it has flavors that I've listed here. The Crianza is sometimes blended with other grapes. You'll pick up many of these flavors. It's more woodsy, more refined, and aromatic. I had a Crianza the other night with a pork tenderloin, asparagus wrapped in prosciutto, and baked yams. The Crianza was very flavorful, fruity, clean and crisp, really incredibly delicious. Getting back to the chart, there's also the Reserva. It's frequently blended with other grapes. You'll find mature fruits. It is sometimes spicy, more earthy, with hints of mint and pepper. Reservas can lay down for several years. It's mature and softens with time. The Gran Reserva is typically blended with other grapes. Generally, it has a delicate floral and fruit nose. On the palate, it has more layered, sophisticated black and red fruits and spice, plus forest floor and savory. Decanting a Gran Reserva brings major sophisticated changes. They can lay down for up to 30 years. As you can see, it's a pretty versatile wine. Now, from my perspective, I thoroughly enjoy exploring the different regions and different tastes. However, when I find something I like, I definitely make mental note of where my go-to Tempranillo comes from. Now, before I go to the food pairings, let me thank you for investing the time to watch this video. If you got something out of it, let me know in the comments below, and also hit subscribe and the little bell to be notified when I post new videos every Tuesday. And please share this video if it was helpful to you. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, number 5, food pairings. It's always good to remember the old adage, what grows together, goes together. Because this is primarily a Spanish wine, you can't go wrong dealing with meats, foods, and meals that are Spanish or Portuguese in nature. I'm going to do a rapid fire listing of some of these meals. You might want to follow along on the charts. Here's a whole host of meals that Tempranillo will pair with: chicken, lamb, beef short ribs. Actually, one Easter several years ago, a number of us drank 4 or 5 different Tempranillos with an incredible roast leg of lamb. It was fantastic, and the pairing was perfect. You'll see on the chart also that Tempranillo pairs really well with steaks, enchiladas, eggplants, burgers, filet mignon, and leaner meats, pizza, parmesan, and paella. Actually, this is horrible. I'm getting hungry. Seriously, let me finish up here and we'll get on with this. Tomatoes-based pastas, did I say lasagna, pizza, barbecue, grilled meats, smoked dishes, dishes with corn as major ingredients, and all sorts of Mexican foods. Yep, you guessed it. Tempranillo is a very versatile wine and will pair well with all types of food and dishes because of its savory qualities. Well, there you have it. Everything you need to know about the Noble Grape and the wine Tempranillo. Hey, thanks so much for investing the time to watch this video. If you got something out of it, let me know in the comments below. Also, hit subscribe and the little bell to be notified when I post new videos. And share this video if it was helpful to you. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks again for joining me. And make sure you watch the other videos that I talked about. Remember to hit like and subscribe if you got something out of the video. Until next time, cheers.